The great doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a sound like thunder. Jiho Kang walked through them, his boots clicking on the crystal floor. Behind him, Dr. Hana Lee carried a datapad and tried not to stare at the massive room before them. The chamber was bigger than any building on Earth. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. Around them, seats rose in circular rows, reaching up and up until they disappeared into shadow. In those seats sat the representatives of 847 species from across the galaxy. Jiho had seen pictures. But pictures did not prepare him for this moment. There were creatures made of light, beings that looked like walking trees, things that floated in tanks of liquid, and shapes he could not even understand. The translation devices in his ear buzzed with hundreds of different sounds, all converted into words he could understand. "Stay close," Jiho whispered to Hana. "And remember, we represent all of humanity today." Hana nodded. She had studied alien cultures for 15 years. But being here, surrounded by so many different forms of life, made her feel very small. A voice boomed across the chamber. The translation device called it Speaker Vren of the Velnar Empire. Jiho looked up and saw a massive insect-like creature, its body covered in black armor, its multiple eyes gleaming in the light. "The human delegation will approach the speaking platform," Vren announced. Jiho and Hana walked to the center of the chamber. A platform rose from the floor beneath their feet, lifting them up so all the council could see them clearly. Lights focused on them. Jiho could feel thousands of eyes watching. "The Galactic Council has called this session to address the problem of humanity," Vren continued. His voice was cold and formal. "Earth was welcomed into our community 20 of their years ago. In that short time, they have caused more disruption than any species in recent memory." Around the chamber, sounds erupted. The translation device struggled to keep up. Clicking, chirping, humming, and sounds that had no Earth equivalent. But Jiho understood the meaning. They were laughing at him. Vren raised one clawed limb, and the chamber fell silent. "Let the record show the charges against humanity. First, they have refused to accept their proper classification as a Category 5 developing species. They demand rights and privileges they have not earned." A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed Earth, a small blue world spinning slowly. Text appeared beside it, listing human crimes against council law. "Second," Vren continued, "they have established colonies on 17 worlds without proper authorization. They spread across space like a virus, consuming resources that should be managed by this council." More images appeared. Human settlements on distant planets, ships moving between stars, factories and farms where the council had not given permission to build. Third, they have been teaching other young species dangerous ideas. Concepts like individual rights and self-determination. 3 species have already rebelled against their proper overseers after contact with human teachers. The chamber erupted again. This time, the sounds were angry. Jiho noticed that the loudest complaints came from the older, more powerful empires, the ones who had the most to lose if other species stopped obeying them. "Finally," Vren said, his voice growing harder. "Humanity is too aggressive. They build weapons constantly. They militarize every system they enter. They train their young in combat. They are a threat to the peace this council has maintained for 100,000 years." New images appeared. Human warships, training facilities, weapons factories. To the council, it must have looked like humanity was preparing for war. Jiho stood quietly through all of this. His face showed nothing. Beside him, Hana gripped her datapad tightly, but she also remained silent. "Look at them," a voice called out from the upper seats. The translation device identified it as Trade Master Allen of the Merchant Collective. "They do not even defend themselves. They know they are guilty." More laughter echoed through the chamber. Vren's eyes focused on Jiho. "Human Captain Kang, you have heard the charges against your species. What do you have to say?" Jiho took a slow breath. He had practiced this moment for months. Everything depended on what happened next. "Thank you, Speaker Vren," Jiho said, his voice calm and clear. "Thank you for giving humanity the opportunity to speak before this council. I have listened carefully to everything you have said. Now I ask that you listen to what I have to say." The chamber fell silent. But it was not the silence of respect. Jiho could feel it. They were quiet because they were amused. They thought it was funny that this human believed he had anything worth saying. Vren settled back in his seat. "You have 5 of your minutes to respond, Captain Kang. Then this council will vote on sanctions against your species. Use your time wisely." "We coming. We coming. We coming. We coming." Jiho looked around the chamber. He saw beings who had ruled the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed. He saw power and certainty and pride. They believed they knew everything about humanity. They believed humans were just another young species that needed to be controlled. They were wrong. Jiho glanced at Hana. She gave him a small nod. She had been watching the council's reactions, reading the room in ways only a trained anthropologist could. She had seen something important. The council was not just annoyed with humanity. They were afraid. That fear would be the key to everything. "I am ready to speak," Jiho said. Vren gestured with one massive claw. "Before the human speaks, this council will hear testimony from those species most affected by human actions. Commander Thex of the Velnar Military Command, you may present your evidence." A screen lit up beside the speaking platform. On it appeared a Velnar soldier, even larger than Vren, covered in dark red armor instead of black. His voice was harsh and angry. "The Velnar Empire has maintained peace in this galaxy for 50,000 years, Commander Thex began. "We have done this through strength and discipline. When humans arrived, we believed they would learn their place like all young species do. We were wrong." Quote. The screen changed to show a map of space. Human territories were marked in blue. They had spread across 17 star systems in just 20 years. Humans have militarized every system they control. Thex continued. They have built weapons platforms, training facilities, and warships. They do not focus on farming or art or culture like proper young species. They prepare for war constantly. 1. The screen showed images of human soldiers training, ships running combat drills, children in schools learning strategy and tactics. They are too dangerous to be left unchecked, Thex concluded. If we do not control them now, in 100 years, they will be a threat to every species in this chamber. Around the room, many representatives made sounds of agreement. Jiho noticed that most of them came from military powers like the Velnar. Next, Trademaster Allen spoke. He was a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish, his transparent body glowing with soft blue light. His voice was smooth, but cold. The humans have damaged the economic order that has served this galaxy for millennia, Allen said. They refuse to pay the standard 40% tariff that all developing species must pay. Instead, they have created their own trade zones. More images appeared. Human trading posts. Ships from other young species, docking at human stations. Money and goods, changing hands, without council oversight. Worse, they have convinced 12 other species to join their free trade system. Allen continued. These species are now earning more profit than they did under council management. This may sound good, but it creates instability. It disrupts the careful balance we have maintained. Allen's body pulsed with red light, showing his anger. If every young species decides to trade freely, the entire galactic economy will collapse. Humans must be forced to follow the same rules as everyone else. The chamber buzzed with discussion. Jiho could see that many species agreed with Allen, especially the older empires who controlled most of the trade routes. Finally, an archivist named Elder Quan spoke. The archivists were the oldest species in the galaxy. They had been watching and recording galactic history for 100,000 years. When an archivist spoke, everyone listened. Elder Quan looked like a tall, thin tree made of silver metal. His voice was quiet but clear, and the entire chamber fell silent to hear him. "I have studied humanity carefully," Quan said. "I have read their history, I have watched their behavior, and I am deeply troubled." The screen changed again. This time it showed Earth's history. Wars, weapons, cities burning, environmental damage, the darkest moments of human civilization, all displayed for the Council to see. "Humans are violent by nature," Quan continued. "In their short history, they have fought hundreds of major wars. They have built weapons capable of destroying their own planet. They have nearly made themselves extinct multiple times through their own actions." Jiho felt Hana tense beside him. These images were hard to watch, even for humans who knew their own history. "But what troubles me most is not their violence," Quan said. "It is their ideas. Humans spread concepts that challenge the natural order. They teach other species about equality, about rights, about freedom. These ideas sound beautiful, but they are dangerous." The screen showed human teachers working with aliens, human books being translated into other languages, human philosophy spreading across dozens of worlds. 3 species have already rebelled against their proper leaders after exposure to human teaching, Quan said. "How many more will follow? How many more will decide they do not need the Council's guidance? Humans are not just changing themselves, they are changing the entire galaxy." The chamber erupted in noise. Some species were angry. Others were afraid. A few, Jiho noticed, seemed curious or even hopeful. But they were the minority. Vren raised his claws again, demanding silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke directly to Jiho. "You have heard the testimony against your species, Captain Kang. Military aggression, economic disruption, cultural contamination. These are serious charges." Vren leaned forward. "Look at the evidence we have shown. Your own history condemns you. You come from a death world with gravity that would crush most species. Your atmosphere has oxygen levels that are toxic to many. You evolved alongside predators and learned to become predators yourselves." The screen showed Earth again, but this time it highlighted all the dangerous aspects. Hurricanes, earthquakes, predatory animals, harsh environments. "You have nearly destroyed yourselves multiple times," Vren continued. "You have built enough nuclear weapons to sterilize your own planet 10 times over. You still fight among yourselves over resources and territory and ideas. And you think you are ready to be part of our civilized galaxy?" The chamber erupted in what Jiho's translator called laughter. Hundreds of species, all mocking humanity together. Jiho stood still, his expression unchanged. Hana leaned close and whispered something in his ear. He nodded slightly. "Tell me, Captain Kang," Vren said, his voice dripping with contempt. "What could your violent, destructive species possibly teach this council? What wisdom do you bring from your tiny, dangerous world?" The laughter grew louder. Some representatives were standing now, their bodies or voices expressing their amusement and disdain. Jiho waited. He let them laugh. He let them mock. He knew something they did not understand yet. Fear always hides behind mockery. Vren let the laughter continue for a full minute. Then he raised his claws again. The chamber fell silent. "You have 5 minutes, Captain Kang," Vren said. "After you speak, this council will vote on sanctions against humanity. Most likely, you will be confined to your home system and forbidden from spreading further into the galaxy. Use your time wisely." Jiho took a breath. He looked around the chamber one more time. Then he spoke. "You call Earth a death world. You are right." The chamber stirred with confusion. This was not the defensive response they expected. "You say we are violent. You are right about that too. You say we are dangerous. On that point, We completely agree. Jiho's voice was calm, but it carried clearly through the massive chamber. Every translator in the room worked to convert his words into hundreds of languages. Let me tell you about Earth, Jiho continued. Our gravity is stronger than most inhabited worlds. Our oxygen levels would poison many species in this room. We evolved alongside predators that could tear us apart with their claws or teeth or venom. We are not the strongest species on our own planet. We are not the fastest. We are not the most dangerous. He paused. But we are still here. Do you know why? No one answered. The chamber was completely silent now. Because we do not give up. Ever. Jiho walked to the edge of the platform. You showed images of our wars. Yes. We have fought. We have fought each other. We have fought our environment. We have fought extinction itself. We have faced ice ages and plagues and asteroids. We have faced our own worst impulses. We have been knocked down so many times that perseverance is not just a virtue for us. It is written into every cell of our bodies. Hannah pulled up new images on her datapad. They appeared on the chamber's main screen. Images of humans climbing mountains, exploring oceans, surviving in deserts, and frozen wastelands. You see our weapons as proof of our violence, Jiho said. We see them as proof that we never want to be defenseless again. Every war we fought taught us a lesson written in blood. And we remembered every single one. The chamber remained silent. Some representatives were leaning forward now, listening more carefully. You mock our short time in space. 20 years to you is nothing. I understand that. Many of you have civilizations that are thousands or millions of years old. 20 years is barely a moment. Jiho's voice grew stronger. But in those 20 years, we established 37 colonies. We built a fleet from nothing. We made contact with 18 new species and formed genuine alliances with them. Not tribute systems, not master and servant relationships. Partnerships between equals. Trade Master Olin spoke up. Those partnerships violate council trade law. Those partnerships, Jiho replied calmly, have made everyone involved more prosperous. The species in our free trade zones are earning more money and building better lives than they ever did under council management. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some representatives seemed uncomfortable with this truth. You say we spread dangerous ideas, Jiho continued. Ideas like freedom, like progress, like the belief that where you are born should not determine where you end. These are not dangerous ideas. These are human ideas. And yes, they are spreading. Elder Kwan's metallic voice rang out. That is precisely our concern. You are changing the natural order. Jiho turned to face the archivist. With respect, Elder Kwan. There is nothing natural about an order that keeps young species weak and dependent. There is nothing natural about a system where a few old empires control everything. Gasps and angry sounds erupted around the chamber. No one spoke to the archivists like this. But Jiho was not finished. You have ruled this galaxy for 100,000 years by keeping young species in their place. You assign categories and classifications. You control trade routes and technology. You decide who prospers and who serves. And it worked. For 100,000 years, your system worked. He paused and looked directly at Vren. But now, there are humans in your galaxy. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. Every being present understood that something important was happening. You want to know what makes humans different? Jiho asked. We look at your 100,000-year-old system, and we do not see wisdom. We see stagnation. We look at your hierarchy, and we do not see stability. We see injustice. Vren stood up, his massive form towering over the chamber. You dare insult this council? You, who represent barely 8 billion individuals, insult an organization that speaks for trillions? Jiho did not back down. I am not insulting anyone. I am explaining. There is a difference. He turned to address the entire chamber. You called us here to put us in our place. To remind us that we are small, and young, and powerless. You want us to bow our heads and accept whatever judgment you deliver. You want us to be grateful for whatever scraps you allow us to have. His voice filled the chamber. But that will never happen. Do you want to know why? Because humanity does not know how to surrender. It is not in our nature. You can look at our entire history, and you will see the same pattern repeated over and over. We get knocked down. We get hurt. We face impossible odds. And every single time, we get back up. Hana stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. Captain Kang has told you about our resilience. Let me tell you about our memory. Humans remember everything. We remember every slight, every injustice, every betrayal. We write it down. We teach it to our children. We carry grudges for thousands of years. She looked around the chamber. But we also remember every kindness, every fair deal, every species that treated us with respect. The choice you make today, this council will make, humanity will remember it for 10,000 years. Choose wisely. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some species were angry, others were frightened. A few seemed impressed, but no one was laughing anymore. Vren slammed his claws down, creating a sound like thunder. Enough. This council will take a recess to deliberate. Guards, escort the humans to a waiting area. In the waiting room, Jiho and Hana sat in silence. The room was small, compared to the massive council chamber, but it was still larger than any room on the human ships. Through a window, they could see distant stars. Do you think it worked? Hana asked quietly. Jiho shook his head. I do not know. But we did what we came to do. We showed them that humans will not bow. Before Hana could respond, the door opened. A guard entered, a creature made of what looked like living crystal. The council is ready to hear final statements. You will be given one more chance to speak. Jiho and Hana exchanged glances. This was unusual. Normally, the council would deliberate in private and then announce their decision. Allowing another statement meant something had changed. They walked back into the chamber. The atmosphere was different now. The mockery was gone. Instead, Jiho felt tension in the air. Many representatives looked worried or angry or thoughtful. Vren spoke as soon as they reached the platform. Captain Kang, this council has reviewed your statements. Some members found them persuasive. Others found them threatening. Before we vote, you will clarify your intentions. Are you threatening this council with violence? Jiho stood straight. No, Speaker Vren. I am not threatening anyone with violence. I am simply explaining who humans are and what we will do. Then explain clearly, Vren demanded. What will humanity do if this council imposes sanctions? This was the moment everything depended on. Jiho chose his words carefully. Let me tell you a story from Earth's history, he began. There was a small peninsula called Korea. It was caught between great empires, China to the west, Japan to the east, Russia to the north. For thousands of years, Korea was invaded, conquered, divided. Everyone thought it would disappear. The chamber was silent. Even species who had never heard of Korea listened carefully. Instead, Korea endured. It adapted. It took something from every invasion, every hardship, and became stronger. The people there developed a culture of resilience. When Japan occupied Korea for 35 years, the people resisted. When the peninsula was divided by war, both sides rebuilt. When dictators tried to crush their spirit, they protested peacefully until democracy won. Jiho looked at Vren directly. Today, Korean culture and technology have spread across Earth, and now across the stars. The person standing before you. My family survived occupation, war, dictatorship, and the collapse of 2089. We are still here, not because we were the strongest, but because we refused to break. He let that sink in before continuing. That is not just my story. That is humanity's story. Every human alive today descends from survivors. People who faced impossible odds and found a way through. It is in our blood. Commander Thex spoke from his seat. This is why we must contain you now, before you become too strong. Jiho turned to face him. Commander, you mentioned that your military ran simulations. I am guessing those simulations showed you something important. Humans do not fight like other species. We do not follow your rules of warfare. We adapt. We innovate. We find weaknesses you did not know you had. We find weaknesses. We see the 23. We 23. Thex said nothing, but his body language confirmed Jiho's guess. You think sanctions will stop us? Jiho asked the entire chamber. You think isolating us to one star system will make us manageable? Let me tell you what happens when you back humans into a corner. He walked to the center of the platform. First, we will innovate. You control the trade routes? We will build our own, even if it takes us 50 years. You restrict our access to certain technologies? We will invent our own versions, and they might be better than yours. Trademaster Olin's body flashed red. Impossible. Some technologies require resources you do not have. Then we will find alternatives. Jiho replied calmly. Humans have been finding alternatives for our entire history. We wanted to fly, but we did not have wings. So we built machines. We wanted to explore the ocean depths, but we could not breathe water. So we built submarines. We wanted to reach space, but we had no natural way to survive there. So we built ships and suits and stations. He looked around the chamber. You have technologies we want. If you share them fairly, we will trade for them, and everyone benefits. If you refuse to share them, we will spend generations developing our own. Either way, we will move forward. End way. Any forward. Forward. End wo. End what I'm an Adamar. Elder Quan spoke, his silver form shimmering. You speak of generations. That is a long time to struggle alone. We have done it before, Jiho said simply. Humans are very good at long-term thinking when we need to be. We plan for our children and our children's children. If you force us to spend 100 years building our own systems separate from yours, we will do it. And when we emerge, we will be stronger than you expect. The chamber filled with uneasy sounds, but there is something else you should consider. Hana added, every species you have suppressed for the last 100,000 years is watching this proceeding. They are seeing that someone finally stood up to you. They are seeing that your power is not absolute. She pulled up data on her pad. New images appeared in the chamber. Dozens of young species, all watching the proceedings through various feeds and channels. If you crush humanity, you send a message that resistance is futile, Hana said. But if you have to fight us for 10 or 20 or 50 years before you win, you send a different message. You show them that the council can be challenged, that the old order can be resisted. And if you lose, Jiho added quietly, every species in this galaxy will know that the council's age of absolute control is over. Vren's claws gripped his chair tightly. You suggest we cannot defeat you? I suggest it would cost you more than you want to pay, Jiho replied. You would win eventually. Your numbers and resources are too great. But the war would last years. It would be expensive. It would be brutal. And when it ended, every young species would remember that humanity made the mighty council bleed. He took a breath. We did not come here to fight you. We came here to join you. We came here hoping to be partners in building a better galaxy. We want to trade. We want to learn. We want to contribute. His voice grew harder. But if you force us to choose between submission and survival, you already know what choice humanity will make. We have spent our entire existence surviving impossible situations. You are not impossible. You are just difficult. The silence that followed was absolute. Every being in the chamber understood the weight of what had been said. "We are not your enemies," Jiho said finally. The council chamber emptied quickly after Jiho's final words. Representatives returned to their private chambers to debate among themselves. Jiho and Hana were escorted back to the waiting room, where they sat in silence for 3 hours. "How long does deliberation usually take?" Jiho asked. Hana checked her data pad. "According to the records I studied, most decisions take less than 1 hour. This is taking much longer." Jiho nodded. That meant the council was divided. That was good. A quick decision would have meant unanimous agreement to crush humanity. In the Velnar command chamber, Commander Thex stood before a wall of tactical displays. His officers had run the simulations again, this time with new parameters based on what the human had said. "The results are the same," one officer reported. "If we attempt to suppress humanity by force, we face a minimum 7-year conflict. Casualties would be acceptable, but the economic cost would be severe, and the probability of complete success is only 63%. Thex stared at the numbers. 63% was not good enough. The Velnar had maintained their empire for 50,000 years, by never entering battles they might lose. "There is another problem," another officer added. "The humans are correct about the message it would send. We have identified 42 young species that are closely monitoring this situation. If humanity resists successfully for even 2 years, we estimate 12 of those species will begin their own resistance movements." Thex felt something he had not felt in decades: uncertainty. In the Merchant Collective's chambers, Trade Master Allen reviewed economic projections with his advisors. The numbers told an uncomfortable story. The human free trade zones have generated 18% more economic activity than our traditional managed systems, one advisor reported. The species involved are showing increased prosperity across all metrics, another advisor added. If we force the humans back to their home system, the 12 species in their trade alliance will likely continue the free trade model. Without them, we will lose control over those markets permanently. Allen pulsed with frustrated colors. What if we accept the humans, but impose strict regulations on their trade practices? They will ignore the regulations, the first advisor said, and other species will support them because the free trade model benefits everyone except us. Allen realized the truth. The old economic order was already dying. The only question was whether the Merchant Collective would adapt or collapse. In the archivist library, Elder Quan accessed the deepest records, files that had not been opened in thousands of years. He searched for patterns, young, aggressive species that had challenged the Council's authority. He found 17 examples throughout galactic history. 14 had been successfully suppressed. Their civilizations were either destroyed or reduced to permanent servitude, but 3 had changed the galaxy forever. Quan studied those 3 cases carefully. All 3 species shared certain characteristics. They had evolved on dangerous worlds. They had developed cultures that valued persistence and adaptation. They had refused to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. In every case, the Council had eventually been forced to accept them as equals. In every case, the galaxy had become more chaotic, but also more vibrant afterward. Quan made his decision. He sent his recommendation to the other archivists, and through them to the entire council. After 4 hours, the guards came for Jiho and Hana again. They walked back into the council chamber. The atmosphere was completely different now. The mockery was gone. The certainty was gone. In its place was something Jiho had not expected to see: respect. Vren stood as they entered. His posture was different, less aggressive. "Captain Kang, Dr. Lee, the Galactic Council has completed its deliberations. By a vote of 643 to 204, we have reached a decision." Jiho and Hana stood on the platform, ready for anything. Earth is hereby reclassified from Category 5 developing species to Category 2 established civilization. This classification grants humanity full trading rights. colonization privileges, without prior authorization, and a seat in the council's lower chamber. These rights are effective immediately. Jiho felt relief flood through him, but he kept his expression neutral. Beside him, Hana gripped her datapad tightly. Furthermore, Vren continued, the 12 species in the Human Free Trade Alliance are also granted Category 2 status. The Council recognizes that attempting to maintain the old trade system is no longer practical or beneficial. Around the chamber, some representatives made sounds of approval. Others remained silent, clearly unhappy with the decision. But Vren was not finished. He stepped down from his platform, something Jiho had never seen a council speaker do during an official session. He approached the human platform and spoke in a voice that was no longer cold and formal, but tired and honest. I have led the Velnar Empire for 40 cycles. I have seen 300 species join this council. Not once have I encountered a Category 5 species that frightened me. Until today. Tu Ming. Tu Ming. Tu Ming. He looked at Jiho directly. You humans are dangerous. Not because of your weapons or your fleets. Those we could handle. You are dangerous because of what you represent. Change. You look at our 100,000-year-old system and see not wisdom, but stagnation. You look at our carefully maintained hierarchy and see not stability, but injustice. Vren's voice dropped lower. And you are right. We have spent so long maintaining our order that we forgot why we built this council in the first place. It was meant to help species thrive and grow. Instead, it became a tool to control them. He stepped back. You have reminded us of that truth, whether we wanted to remember it or not. So we grant you this status, not as a reward, but as an acknowledgement. You are going to take your place among the stars regardless of our permission. Better to accept it now with dignity than fight a war we might not win. Vren returned to his platform. Welcome to the Galactic Council, humans. Try not to break too many things. The chamber erupted in sound. Some species were celebrating. Others were protesting. But the decision was made. On the shuttle back to the human colony ship, Hana finally allowed herself to relax. She turned to Jiho with a tired smile. That was either the bravest thing I have ever seen or the most reckless. Jiho smiled slightly. It was necessary. They needed to understand we are not going away. Better they learn that through words than through war. Do you think they will honor the agreement? Some will. Others will not. Jiho looked out at the stars. But we bought ourselves time and legitimacy. Now we have to prove we deserve it. AS, SSSAS, ASSSASSSASSSASSSASSS. As their shuttle approached the colony ship New Sol, they saw dozens of other vessels joining their formation. Ships from the 12 species in the Free Trade Alliance, coming to escort them home. It was a statement. Humanity was not alone. Below, on the colony world of Nova Terra, a young girl named Mira sat in a classroom. Around her were students from 6 different species, all learning together. Her teacher, an elderly man named Taeyang, displayed a newsfeed showing Jiho's speech. Remember this day, Taeyang told his students. Not because humans won something, but because today, the galaxy learned that no species has all the answers. That strength comes not from dominating others, but from standing together. A young alien student raised a limb. Teacher, will the council really change? Taeyang smiled. Change does not happen in one day, but it starts with a single moment. A single choice to try something different. Today was that moment. G-Zen T. Outside the classroom window, the stars shined bright. A galaxy that, for the first time in 100,000 years, had begun to change. Not through violence or conquest, but through the simple human insistence that everyone deserves a chance to rise. And humanity had only just begun.